So you run a startup and you want to grow it massively? Well, performance marketing is one way of doing it. Simon believes there's better ways to do that. He will go into the right success metrics. He will go into how to build partnerships for your success. And he will also go down, teaching us behavioral science components to really make your prospects and future customers chase you, your services, and your products. I want to learn how I can grow my next startup the best way possible. So this virtual stage is yours, Simon.
Hello, and thank you for joining my talk here at AdWorld. So today I'm keen to talk to you about growing your startup brand beyond performance marketing. Now, typically a lot of the brands who have grown and have championed performance marketing have grown from that typical lower funnel channel. Channels such as search and paid social, which has in turn affected their longer term growth. So I want to sort of use today as a chance to sort of unpack that a little bit and have a look at some ways in which you could build out further. So what I'm going to cover today are three areas that I consider to be proven which enable you to grow your startup. Now, when I say startup, it could be a brand within your portfolio of brands, or it could be an actual small business that you're running from your lounge. So growing your startup, three proven categories. Number one, I want to look at partnerships and how you can use them to unlock new audiences and positive brand association. Secondly, I'm really interested in behavioral science. Now, I feel that there's a lot of merit in looking at the ways human psychology plays its way into decision making and ultimately can help make your marketing communications work a lot harder. And thirdly is measurement. Now, measurement and attribution is a huge topic. I'm sure you're seeing that a lot today in the media buying track. But honestly, wrong measurements of success can be damaging for your brand. So the correct measurement is key. And what I do, I like to add a final thing here, which wasn't on this script, but it's the big leveler, which is something that I talk about whether you're a small business or a global business. The levelers are key for you to tap into so everyone's got an even shot at success. So firstly, hello, a little bit about me. I'll try and get to the point really quickly on this. I have a range of experience having been working in sales and ultimately marketing and media planning and strategy for the last 16 years. Actually, I tell a lie, that's now 17 years. I've been saying 16 for over a year now, so it's time to move with the times. Starting at Experian, the bastions of data, going through working with brands such as Vodafone, Disney, experiences presenting over at Downing Street, working with some of the major brands and agency groups, and also here in the UK, working with some traditional brands that have needed to innovate digitally. So for example, Post Office, BT, Transport for London. That culminated in me setting up Archman, and as a result, I'm now a member of the Performance In editorial board, and I write for those guys, and I have a regular quarterly contribution of New Digital Age. I also do lecturing at guest lecturing, for example, at Lincoln University, and I support mentor through Brixton Finishing School. And I've recently written a book, Back to Basics, which we can talk about as well. So before we start, I want to quickly cover this off. Performance marketing is this traditional lower funnel. Without going into the definitions, I'm sure there's other presentations that can do that. It's about response and sales and advertising to generate a conversion or an action. And that success is measured easier there, okay? And it's where most startups live. However, brand marketing is the awareness piece, the thing that we have to do as well. But the challenges are it takes longer to measure. Startups perceive it therefore as wastage. It's not immediately measurable, but it is what is needed for long-term growth. So just to sort of posit that before we go into these three areas, the first of which is partnerships, that should help there. So The use of partnerships to unlock new audiences and positive brand association, that is the idea of a good partnership. Now, when I talk about partnerships, I like to think about win, win, win. It only matters if the buyer benefits. There's no good, having a good relationship between the seller and the advertiser and the partner, the publisher. There has to be something where you work together and there's a symbiosis for the end user, the person. So if you're a startup and you're providing grooming products, maybe team up with a healthy eating business because you're unlocking their audience, and it's a win for the client because they're getting all these benefits, the customer rather. So this is an example from the UK. I like this. This is Kayak, which is as you may know, a price comparison site, and they are partnering with First Choice Holidays. Now, First Choice are the advertiser who are advertising with Kayak. Now, I always reference this. This was a Black Friday deal, so it was timely, and I got this the year before last. Now, I like this for 3 reasons. I like it because the publisher is happy, Kayak, because they're being paid to advertise, so they're fine, and they're reaching their audience. The advertiser is happy because they are actually pivoted to a objective platform, a comparison engine. So they are in fact tapping into that and almost getting a bit of bias in that world, so it looks good to them. And I, of course, I'm the consumer. I'm very happy because, I feel like I've unlocked something special. I already trust Kayak, and they're giving me a deal. So that's really important. The other thing about partnerships, which I want to talk about, growing your brand, is how important it is to consider locale. Now, there's various stats around this, but just for simple maths, 4 out of every 10 people prefer to work with local businesses, 6 out of 10 prefer the global businesses. Now, or national. So that tells you something. You could increase your reach by another, 60%, if your interest by 60%, if you can actually tap into those local areas. So for example, if you're on an app searching for pizza, make sure that your brand is on there if you're a local pizza business, because people trust the local brands. Or if you're a global business in retail and you'll want to tap into local offers, even though you're not in that locale, maybe be there at that point, advertising the local newspaper, be on the local radio, because actually locale and geography is a great way to build resonance through location and association. Now, I've talked about this briefly, is affiliates. So partnerships are the coming together of 2 businesses. Affiliates is this sort of commercial channel which enables people to be paid on a sale that they drive from their real estate. Now, pay on sale opportunities are multivariate, and there's a few examples here. You've got cashback sites, you have comparison sites, you have the labs, Guardian Labs here, which is more about sponsored content. So these are partnerships that transcend different buying models, so cost per acquisition, cost per lead, cost per click, cost per registration. It's very important. Now, focus very quickly on this one. The tenancy. The tenancy is really important for increasing your share of voice. Now, those of you who are predisposed to performance marketing, you're less bothered about share of voice, but share of voice is proven to be the place where it links to share of market. There's a new proxy of share of search, which gives you an indication of the share of voice and brand health. So actually, the good way of doing this is to look at a tenancy, for example, this, in a comparison site. And to get a few extra points, you do a little bit of a banner, you do a little bit of a takeover or a header or a banner, add it to the standard listing, and all of a sudden you have something which is putting your brand front and center and actually growing that brand and showing. It's like price signaling, basically. It's like if you pay for one advert on TV, you are telling an audience that you have a bit more cash, and that's a good look. I want to cover the second, I would say, proven technique, which stems from behavioral science. And it's important to use this to make all your communications work harder. And this isn't a picture of a giant chasing a poor victim down a hallway. This is actually two beasts of exactly the same size. It's just a case of the bricks and the tunneling giving a different perspective. And that's what it's all about. It's about perspective. Now, it's important, but why? It's important because it makes your advertising work harder through communication that taps into psychology. So you can look at all the data in the world, you can look at the rationale, you can look at what people say they like and buy, but actually numerous studies have proven that the reasons that people buy things are the things that they don't even admit to. So some very, very interesting findings, and three of my favorite, I guess, behavioral science nudges in branding and marketing are here below. So I talk about the importance of nudges here throughout the funnel. Now, I start with the brand positioning all the way through to the delivery via the acquisition of the customer. So starting with Robert Cialdini, who wrote Influence, the Science of Persuasion and Persuasion, he has a great quote, which I can't remember verbatim, but he talks about, price is such an important signifier of quality that brands have been known to raise prices and improve their market share. So it's a signifier of quality. Now I've got the Apple logo there because Apple have never once dropped their prices. In fact, they increase their prices. We go back every 2 years to get the iterated model with a couple of new features, and we buy the new socket and we buy the new charger for the new socket because we love the brand. They've not once dropped their prices. And there's brands who are known to drop their prices who have not sadly survived the pandemic. When it comes to acquisition, you should think about the sales tactics and the pricing tactics that you can use. Richard Shotton, a partner of Archman's, my companies, and also he wrote the book The Choice Factory. He did some brilliant research, and he's in his book The Choice Factory. He's got this great example from MIT. I think they did a mail order, MIT or Northwestern, sorry, and it was a catalog, and they split test two different catalogs, and it was the same dress in two different things. And they tested $39 versus $44. Now, as you'd expect, the $39 performed better. Now, this is talked about the left-hand pricing effect, the priming, the three, you see the three before the four, the power of 9. So that's why things are 99p instead of £1. So $39 performed better than $44. But the interesting thing as well is that $39 also outperformed $34. Now, potentially, this is because of the left-hand pricing effect and its assumptions of what that means. Now, my hypothesis on this is that it's seen as a deal. When you go to the shop and you see something for something 99, you're automatically predisposed to that being an offer. And the delivery part is when, right, you've got the client, they've paid for your service, I don't know, you're on a plane, for example, and something happens and it's not great. And the way you can use behavioral science is a very interesting opportunity, especially for dealing with issues. So Rory Sutherland, the brilliant author, I think he was on AdWorld 2020, I don't know if he's on again this year, but he wrote a book called Alchemy. It's sort of fascinating anecdotes. And he flew somewhere, and when you land miles away, it could be on a plane, and your plane comes to a stop 2 miles from the terminal, and a little bus comes along. Now, everyone who's flown knows that that's not ideal, and you think, oh God, this is not good. However, rather than the pilot getting on the tannoy and saying to the passengers, sorry about the inconvenience, we couldn't get a jet bridge, please wait and the buses will come and pick you up. He changed it to, don't worry, sit tight, we have shuttles coming to fast track you straight to passport control. So do you see how the use of language and those small changes can make the experience better of not only your acquiring customers, but once you've acquired them, make it better. The third is measurement. And I always say, just as you can measure it doesn't mean it matters. So the wrong measurements of success are actually damaging for your brand, and the proliferation of, Ads Manager, Business Manager, Google Analytics, AdWords, all these platforms, they give you impressions, clicks, reach, and CTR, CVR, certain things which are useful, but not always useful. So coming back to this, I would say measure what matters. And what matters is outcomes. So, you look at, for example, just because you measure it doesn't mean it matters. Think about what the end goal is. Now, yes, if you use paid search, you will get a better cost per acquisition, say. But longer term, is it helping the business? In the back of a book that I wrote, Back to Basics, which I'll talk about shortly, I gave this example in the back. Now, if you look at these three examples, this is a real, true working of arbitrary KPIs in action, okay? So if I was a CPA junkie, I'd look at that and I'd say, great, we achieved a CPA of $40 on paid search compared to that ridiculous TV one of 175. So actually I'm thinking, okay, great, that's a really efficient channel. Now then, efficiency is different to effectiveness. Paid search is a classic example of high conversion, low CPAs. It could be to do with attribution, it could be to do with the nature of capturing the intent, the people are already predisposed. There's a number of arguments which this particular session is not for. But what I will say is that there is a diminishing return. You can't keep that up forever. Look at the ROAS. Now, the difference with ROAS is that is based on revenue generated versus spend, whereas cost per acquisition is only based on the marketing spend, okay? So what ROAS and ROI says is actually what are the business outcomes as a result of your marketing spend, not just number of conversions, but the actual, bottom line balance. Facebook wins, brilliant, that's great. But Facebook generated only 48,000 revenue. TV, on the other hand, inferior ROAS, superior revenue. And that's key. So to keep it simple, in layman's terms, if you've got £1 and you make £10, you've got a 10-to-1 ROAS. But I guarantee if you spend $1 million, you're not going to get a 10 million return. So the smart move is to not confuse effectiveness with efficiency, adapt, and then over time, once you've hit a certain level, evolve your KPIs. Good planning and good future investment means what works at one point will not work forever. Be ready to almost go backwards to go forward in that respect. Don't just take my word for it, by the way. There's a number of studies, Les Binet and Peter Field with a seminal paper, the long and the short of it, back in 2016, was about how you need both of them to work simpatico to grow your brand. So you'll have sales activations that peak and trough the share of voice and the sales activity, but then brand is something that's salient and has a longer lag time, and something which needs to be supported to prop up said sales. And this is proven over a number of case studies in the Walk database. So what I'm getting to here is there's a challenge on education, okay? So, only the other day I saw this, that the Confused.com CMO here in the UK was talking about how to get the buy-in from the CEO. You got Les Binet here himself on Walk talking about getting buy-in from the CFO. Okay, so what we need to be doing is thinking about not just CPAs, because CPAs are okay, but the CFO will like the CPA, but you need to make sure that if he sees a high CPA, that does not correlate with reduced revenue. It might well come to higher revenue, which the bottom line growth is just what the CMO wants to hear. I just want to finalize this on the big leveler. I like to use the analogy of David and Goliath. You know, David, smaller, agile, taking on the big boys. Now, what I love about online buying is a dollar is a dollar. It doesn't matter who you are. You could be Procter and Gamble or Peter and Gabriel. It doesn't matter. You have a single dollar. You have just as much right. There's no economy of scale. There's no big agency buy that's going to save you or them. What you need to do is use that same dollar and you can bid effectively with the right creative, and you have got a seat at the table as good as anyone. And these are the kinds of channels I would implore most of those. There is some minimum spend on some of them, for example, YouTube VOD or potentially on Yahoo as well, depending on what area you do. But what I would say is you can go and register on every single one of these after this session. Start trading. You should be able to take on anyone in your category if you get it right. And I'll leave you with this example on the offline buy side. So I know it's an online advertising summit, but I like to talk about offline working harder as well. Now, there's a great story, the Lincoln Project over in the US. And they were a progressive not-for-profit, and they wanted to essentially redefine what politics was in the Trump era. So what they did a short advert, and they bought one slot in one TV spot, and it was in Fox News, and it was quite a low relative investment. I can't remember the exact amount, but who saw it? Mr. Trump himself, the trigger-happy, tweet-happy Donald Trump. He tweeted about it. He put them on the radar. And as a result, 2 million donations and 25,000 donors later, they were well known and they were able to continue their communications, which ultimately led to a successful secession of said target. And Dave Trott was a really good source for that on campaign. So just to finalize, my 4 points for you to take away to help your brand grow just outside performance marketing. Number 1, affiliates and partners are more than a fulfillment last click option. They are often ways to unlock new audiences and tap into new personas, whether it's price driven or comparison driven, to actually capture. So it's not just about fulfillment. Number 2, using nudges and behavioral science will help you all the way from positioning the price and the brand, all the way through to tactics, activation, and delivery, whether it's a plane, a bus, or a jet bridge. With measurement, be prepared to evolve your measurement over time. Go for long-term business growth. You can short-term it for a while, but your CPA will start to go up, start to look at revenue. And finally, a dollar is a dollar. And like the Lincoln Project were, be ruthless with your execution. Now, I cover this in a little more detail, the tenets of partnerships, behavioral science and positioning, and measurements, and there's some really great contributors. You can, of course, download in the link that will be attached to this presentation as well. Thank you very much, and I look forward to your questions.